All right, today is distance formula error analysis, and you can see I've worked out some of this before posting it, just to save myself a little bit of time. I got a little bit behind, so error analysis hopefully we'll be able to kind of do without too much trouble. So let me just go back and tell you what I did. First thing I did was to label my coordinates so I can remember which is x1, y1, x2, and y2. Following my formula, I know that I have to do x2 minus x1 plus y2 minus y1. So looking at that, I come down here and I say x2 is 3 minus x1 is 4. So that's where I get these two, and then they have to be squared, plus y2, which is 2, minus y1, which is negative 5. So this is 2 minus negative 5. And when you subtract a negative, you actually end up adding. So 3 minus 4 is negative 1 squared, and 2 plus 5 is 7 squared. So we have 1 squared is 1 times negative 1 is positive 1, and 7 squared is 49. So now what we're looking for is the square root of 50. So I left it there. And let's see if we can figure out what the square root of 50 is. We'll go ahead and use our calculator. Remember, we have to use the scientific piece of it, portion of it. Otherwise, we won't be able to figure this out. And square root of 50. So we're going to hit the square root button first, and then 50, and then equals. So in this case, the square root of 50 is 7 7/100. So I'm going to write this. It's going to be 7 7/100. Okay. So let's take a look at number, well, it's not really number. There's no number, but we're going to look at this one next. All right, same thing. Start the same way. Label my coordinates so I know what I'm working with. Then we know it's x2 minus x1. So in this case, it's 12 minus 0 squared plus y2, which is 0, minus y1, which is 9. So 0 minus 9 squared. So 12 minus nothing is 12. So we have 12 squared plus 0 minus 9 is negative 9. So negative 9 squared. Okay. So 12 times 12 is 144. And negative 9 squared, that's negative 9 times negative 9, gives us positive 81. And so when we add them together, we get 225. And the square root of 225 is 15. Easy cheesy. That one is, I mean, easy as in we don't have to write down a decimal. So our answer here is 15. That's our distance. Okay. All right. The last two. So x2 minus x1, which is negative 3 minus negative 2. And then y2, which is 9 minus negative 8. So we have negative 3 plus 2, because when you subtract a negative, you're adding. So that gives us negative 1. And 9 plus 8, which is 17. So negative 1 squared is 1. And 17 squared is 289. So our answer is the square root of 290. Which is 17 2/100. Okay, and our last one here. So x2 minus x1 means 2 minus 14. There's that. And then negative 6 minus 8. So 2 minus 14 is negative 12. If I have 2, but I owe 14. I can only give you 2. That means I still owe you 14. All right. And this is negative 6 minus 8. So it's a negative 6 and it's a negative 8, which gives us negative 14 squared. So this is 144, and negative 14 squared is 196. And when we add them together, we get 340. So they were right. All the way up here, they had it all Well, they didn't have it all right, but in the end, they ended up the same numbers. So let's look to see if they've got the square root right. So it's going to be the square root of 340, which is 18 and 44 hundredths. So all right, so that is right. Woohoo! All right, we're going to move on then to the next lesson. And I'm just going to combine these two together because in the interest of time and uploading videos and all that jazz, we're going to go for it here. All right, so the next lesson is finding the volume of cylinders. All right, so the volume of a cylinder. Remember, volume is the space it takes up on the inside of something. So if you're going to fill, say, a cup, then you're looking at the volume of this as sort of a cylinder shape. If you're going to be filling a box, you need to know what you can put inside of that box. So the volume is measured by knowing the radius of the base and the height. So we have the formula for volume is pi times the radius squared times the height. So of course, when we get a radius, that's fine. But when we get a diameter, then we're going to have to do a little work, and we're going to have to split that diameter in half because radius is half of the diameter. Okay, so for this one, this is calculate the volume. So what we're going to do is we're going to write this down every time so we can remember. So volume is equal to pi times the radius squared times the height. Okay, so here we have pi. Our radius is 3 feet, so times 3 feet squared times the height, which is 6. So order of operations says we have to do all of our exponents first. So pi times 3 squared is 9 times 6. So we can say pi times 9 times 6 is 54. It doesn't matter which order once we get to multiplying, because order multiplying is any order works. So I'm going to say pi times 54. That gives us 169 and 64 hundredths cubic feet. Now it's cubic because it is let's see, 169 and 64. We're looking at not just square. It's not a flat area. This is a volume. It's three-dimensional. So three-dimensional means we're going to have 3 cubic. Okay. I also think of it as volume. You're always multiplying 3 things: pi, radius, and then height. So those 3 things, that's kind of how I remember that it's going to be cubic. Okay, so here we are with the volume of this funky shape. So in this case, we have this. This is going to be our height. This is going to be our diameter. So in order to figure this out, we're going to say that the volume is equal to pi times the radius squared times the height. We need to know what half of 52 is, because 52 is our diameter, and our radius is going to be half of the diameter equals the radius. So we're going to take half of 52. We'll do that first. So 52 divided by 2 is equal to 26. Now we know what our diameter is. So we're going to have pi times 26 squared times 13. That's our height. This looks like the height, but this is not a radius. We can't figure out what the width of this circle is by this number here, okay? All right, so pi times, let's do 26 squared. So 26, x to the 2 is 676. So this is going to be times 676 times 13. So I can leave that number in there. I can say equals 676. Then I can say times pi. And then I can say times 13 is our height. 13 equals. So in this case, we get a really big volume. It is 27,608 and 32 hundredths. Wow, 27,608 and 32 hundredths cubic yards. A lot, okay? It's huge, huge, huge. It's a big old cylinder of some sort. Okay. So you might be asking, like, why do I need to even know this? If you were ever to work for a union called a company where you are sinking huge, what's called casings, big circular steel cylinder-like things into the ground, where you're going to pour cement in there for the support of a new bridge or a building of some sort, you need to know how much concrete, how much stuff am I going to have to buy to put in there. So this is something that this is the only way you'd be able to figure it out. I'm sure there is some kind of a quick little mathematical thing you might be able to do on your calculator, but basically this is the idea. So you know you're going to need a lot of material to fill something like this. All right. Okay, so calculate the height of a cylinder with a radius of 6 and a volume of 904 and 32 hundredths cubic inches. Okay, these are always confusing to me. So if you're confused, don't think you're the only one. Going backwards sometimes is not easy for me, but I'm going to go ahead and do what I know. So I know that my formula is volume equals pi times the radius squared times the height. So now I'm going to substitute the things that I have. So what I have is the volume, 904 and 32 hundredths. I know pi, I know the radius, but I don't know what the height is, okay? So I'm going to say 904 and 32 hundredths equals, I'm going to solve this part right here, pi times 6 squared is 6 times 6 or 36 times the height. So this is hard for me to write a little bit here. So, okay, so we have 904 and 32 hundredths is going to be equal to, I'm going to figure out this portion right here. Okay, so what is pi times 36? That's what I'm looking for. Pi times 36 is 113 and, well, 113 and 1/10 times something. So now it's just a matter of some division. If I divide both sides by 113, I get rid of that. Then I'm going to get what my height is. So let's take this 904 and 32 hundredths, and I'm going to divide it by 113 and 1/10. And I get basically 8. I get 7 and 99 hundredths, which I'm going to round up to 8. So our height is 8. It is 8 inches. That's our height. Okay? All right, so let's see if we can figure this one out. All right, so calculate the diameter of a circle with a height of 16 centimeters and a volume of 1,256 cubic centimeters. Okay, so again, we're going to go backwards. We're going to say we know that volume is equal to pi times the radius squared times the height. So we're going to go with our volume because we know what it is. So we're going to say 1,256 is equal to pi times the radius squared times 16. All right, so we know this part and we know this part. So if we say 1,256 is equal to pi times 16, that's really all we can do right now. It's what we know. So come on over to your calculator. You're going to say pi times 16, which is 50.27 times the radius squared. All right, so again, we're going to divide by 50 50.27 here, and divide by 50.27 here. This is going to give us our radius squared. So we're going to do 1,256 divided by 50.27 equals roughly 25. It's 24 99/100ths. So I'm going to say it's about 25. So 25 is the radius squared. So we're going to have to figure out what the radius is so we can figure out what the diameter is. So what is the square root of 25? What number times itself is 25? That should be easy. That's going to be 5. Okay, so 5 is equal to the radius, but we're looking for the diameter. So the diameter is twice the radius. So our diameter then is going to be 5 times 2, which is 10. So 10 centimeters is what we have for a diameter. All right. So let's take a look and see what would we be doing for our practice, just to see if my computer slips. Just forgive me here. It's kind of being funky. Okay, so here it's asking us to find the volume. And you know, I think you guys can do that. You've got the radius, you've got the diameter, you've got the height, you've got everything that you need to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to assign those to you. The missing dimensions piece we can do together. Don't forget that the diameter, oh my goodness, let's see, how do we put this up here? Boy, lots of moving around, all kinds of stuff. Okay, so the diameter is equal to half. No, sorry. Oop. That's not quite right. So the radius is equal to half of the diameter. Okay, so here this is the radius. This is a diameter. So you're going to have to take half of this one to find the radius. Okay, here is the radius, but this one is diameter, so you're going to have to take half of it. Okay? All right, you guys, good luck. You can do it. We'll talk to you all tomorrow.